Greetings to everybody in YouTube land. It's time to take a quick look at the final 4 weeks of the 2013-2014 Palm Coast Lanes Friday Night Mix. Back at the start of the season, 18 teams had the goal of winning the Friday Night Mix Championship. With only 4 weeks left, STF-UMB, 2S3J, and Second Chance all looked to make that dream a reality. They would all be put to the final test to see who is the best of them all. Also, at long last, a 7.5-year drought would finally come to an end. So, how did it all turn out and who would be crowned Friday Night Mix champions? Let's find out. Week 31 of the Friday Night Mixed would be a historic one that won't be soon forgotten, and this is why.
Yeah!
History has been made! Tony Royal's perfect game was the first in 265 league weeks, dating back to September 15, 2006, when Jeffrey Twombly performed the feat. His bunch, here for a good time, would take all 7 over to S3J. STF-UMB would struggle against Up Your Alley and only take 2, but extended their lead to 6. Second Chance would easily take care of Hit and Miss, taking all 7 and are right back in the thick of it. After it was all said and done, Week 31 would belong to Tony Royal. Most bowlers would fall back down to earth after a perfect game, but in Week 32 of the Friday Night Mixed, Tony Royal had other ideas and did this.
Oh my goodness! He's done it again! What are you trying to show Mark's love? Because he got one last night, you got one.
In addition to his second 300 game in as many weeks, he also added an awesome 278 and a 227 game for an amazing 805 series. Here for a good time would need every bit of Royal's 300 and took all 7 over highly medicated. Hit and Miss suddenly went cold with their second straight 7-0 loss, this time at the hands of the 5 stars. STF-UMB would use Amanda Parrish's awesome 278 game and it would cruise to 7 over Section 8. 2S3J would use an amazing Steve Hoffman Sr. performance to take 5 over the Hot Pockets in a high-scoring blowout fest, holding off Daniel Miller's fantastic 704 series. So, for STF-UMB, if they take 7 over thrown together next week, they will be Friday Night Mix champions. Could they do it, or will 2S3J have one last chance? In Week 33 of the Friday Night Mix, STF-UMB had an opportunity to clinch the title, and all they had to do was sweep thrown together. However, team inconsistency and Mike Hamilton wouldn't let that happen, as Amanda Parrish and company would take 5. 2S3J did what they had to do and took all 7 over the Alley Cats, shrinking the lead down to 6, making the requirements for the championship simple for both STF-UMB and 2S3J. Here for a good time was red hot and absolutely destroying the Sleepers, extending their winning streak to 21 and setting the team game and series records in the process. Other blowout winners included highly medicated, the Hot Pockets, and Forget About It. So, who will win it all? The final week of the Friday Night Mix put the focus on the championship matchup between STF-UMB and 2S3J. All Amanda Parrish and company needed was a win or a tie, while 2S3J needed to take all 7. In Game 1, 2S3J would take complete control as Joe Olkowitz's 225 and Steve Hoppin Jr.'s 244 would propel the team to a big 178-point Game 1 win. Game 2 would prove to be much closer, but still in 2S3J's favor. Amanda Parrish would shoot a 242, but would get little help, and Steve Hoffman Sr.'s 195 would be good enough to put 2S3J one game from winning it all. The ties would turn in Game 3, and through most of the game, STFUMB would nurse a slim lead. Mark Murphy would shoot a 212, but that wouldn't be enough to counter David Pouliot's 204 and Amanda Parrish's 223. STFUMB would persevere, win Game 3, and become Friday Night Mixed Champions. Here for a Good Time would take all 7 from Second Chance and become just the second team to post a perfect month since the start of the 2006-2007 season, when Full Count did it in January of 2007. The Alley Cats would have little trouble taking care of the oddballs, as Dog Wolk ripped a sensational 697 series. Hit and Miss would narrowly take 5, and Total Wood by just 12 pins over the 5 stars. Up Your Alley would end up taking 4 over the Steelers in a rematch from last week. 7.5 Degrees would also take 4, in this case over Kings and Queens, holding off a great James DiStefano effort. The Hot Pockets would crack the code of Highly Medicated and take 5. Forget About It would end up taking 5 over Thrown Together in a battle where the average margin of victory was 121 points, and Section 8 would not take the 7 they would need to pass the Sleepers and avoid last. And now, here are the final standings, last through first. Section 8 finishes last. The Sleepers finish 17th. Thrown Together finishes 16th. Forget About It finishes 15th. The Hot Pockets finish 14th. Highly Medicated finishes 13th. Kings and Queens end up 12th. 7.5 Degrees finish 11th. Up Your Alley finishes 10th. The Steelers end up 9th. The 5 Stars finish 8th. Hit and Miss finishes 7th. The Oddballs finish 6th. Second Chance and the Alley Cats tie for 4th. Here for a Good Time finishes 3rd. 2S3J finishes in 2nd. And the 2013-2014 Friday Night Mixed Champions, STFUMB. Here's how the high average races fared. For the man, Matt Meyer would win it with a 212.80 average, winning by 2.84 pins over Tony Royal. And for the women would be Amanda Parrish in a landslide. She had a 214.93 average, 36.46 pins over Melody Sheenfield. The most improved bowlers for the season. For the men, Jacob Gray raised his average by 20.27 pins, 3.03 pins ahead of Marty Webb. And for the women, it would be Sandra Berry, who raised her average by 11.86 pins, 3.67 pins ahead of Jessica Sherman. And now, here are some random bowler facts. 17 bowlers bowled all 102 games, and only the oddballs had 3 of those bowlers. 12 bowlers bowled a 300-plus handicap game, and only Tony Royal had more than one of them. 10 bowlers bowled a 700 series, and the 4 bowlers who have more than one 700-plus have at least 3. And 5 bowlers bowled an 800-plus handicap series, and 3 of them got their 800-pluses off of a 700-plus series. And now, some random team facts. The longest winning streak of the season belonged to Hit and Miss and Here for a Good Time, 28 each. The longest losing streak was by Kings and Queens with 28. STFUMB and 2S3J had the most Total Wood wins, each with 24. Section 8 had the least number of Total Wood wins with 10. There were 20 occurrences of a team taking Total Wood by at least 300 points. There were 9 occurrences of a team winning a game by at least 200 points. There were 14 occurrences of a team bowling an under 3,000 handicap series. And there were 7 tie games and 1 Total Wood tie. Here for a Good Time had the most 7-0 wins with 10. 7.5 Degrees in Section 8 had the least number of 7-0 wins with just 2. The Oddballs and 2S3J had the least number of 7-0 losses with 3. And the Sleepers had the most 7-0 losses with 13. And now, here are quick facts for each team. Thrown Together last took 7 in Week 19, tied for the earliest. The 5 Stars had the 3rd worst position round record. Second Chance tied for the best record in the first half of the season. 7.5 Degrees were one of 7 teams to not be involved in any ties during the season. The Oddballs were one of 4 teams to improve their win total by at least 10 from the first to the second half of the season. STFUMB had the most number of 300-point Total Wood wins with 4. The Sleepers had the worst record in the second half of the season. Kings and Queens were one of 2 teams to forfeit a series during the season. The Hot Pockets were the only team to shoot at least one under 900 handicap game. Forget About It took 10 absentee scores, the least of any team. Here for a Good Time saved their best for the end with an outstanding 30-5 record in the final 5 weeks. Hit and Miss tied for the best record in the second half of the season. Up Your Alley was one of 2 teams to tie for total wood at least once. 2S3J was involved in the most game ties with 3. Section 8 was one of 2 teams to have the same record in the first and second halves of the season. Highly Medicated tied for the worst position round record. The Alley Cats had 4 under 1,000 handicap games, the least of any team. And the Steelers were the least improved team in the second half, losing 22 more points than in the first half. And I would like to congratulate STF UMB on winning the Friday Night Mixed Championship. And until the next season starts, so long for now!
Mission